This expression we have bechkosi, and we have in this expression tremendously fascinating and yesodistic, and really, if someone would allow for it, potentially life-changing and groundbreaking ideas, which is always true with Torah. Um, so let's start off. The pasuk says, "Im bechukosai telechu." So it says, "If you will go in my chukim, v'et mitzvosai tishmeru b'asis moisam," and you'll guard my mitzvahs and you will do them. So Rashi says, "Im bechukosai telechu." He says, "Yachol ze kiyum hamitzvahs." I would have thought to suggest that this is referring to kiyum hamitzvahs. Kishu amri v'et mitzvosai tishmeru b'asis moisam, hari kiyum hamitzvahs am. When it says that a person should guard Hashem's mitzvahs and do them, so it says already, Kiyam mitzvahs amor, it's already said Kiyam mitzvahs. What therefore does it mean that a person should be amel, should be holich in the chukos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Shtiyu amelim b'Torah. This means that you should be amelim b'Torah. Okay, so that's Rashi. Now, there's really so much to be said, but we'll try to shorten it as much as possible. The most basic, there are a few questions, but let's go with the most basic one. The most basic question is like this. In bechokosei telichu, a chok, we know that the simplest definition of the word chok is the fact that it's in contrast to mishpat, and a mishpat means a rule or a halacha or a din in the Torah, which even if it wasn't written, you would have known to have done it. In other words, it's intuitive on the human societal level. So murder and stealing and most of the Aseret Hadibris, if it wouldn't have been given, so like that, and many other mishpatim of the Torah as well. So those are mishpatim. But chukim are things which, if they wouldn't have been said, I would have perhaps not have discovered or realized that that is what needs to be done here. So it comes along Kadosh Baruch Hu makes a chok, and he says you're doing it, and you don't ask why. It's not a logic thing. It is a chok. It's a rule. It does not have an intuitive basis in the way that a person views the world. That's the simplest definition. Now, Rashi wants to touch in bechukosai telechu. That means that the shot over here is that you should be amal b'Torah. Okay, so now let's see if it fits that most basic definition. L'chayra, it does not. Why? Well, if you give us a Torah and you say, okay, here's the Torah, and here is the rules, and you should know the Torah is a tremendous chachma, there's a lot of wisdom in it, a lot of all these things. So it is a very intuitive thing that I would have understood that a person needs to toil in it in order to reap the benefits of it. So just like anything in life, if one wants to reap benefits from it, they have to toil. So where does Rashi get off by saying that Bechukosei means Amal B'Torah? What do you mean? Bechukosei has to be something that wouldn't have been intuitive. Had the Torah not written it, I wouldn't have known it. If I was given the Torah and they said a tremendous chachma, I stock by Alma, of course I have to be toiling. Otherwise I can't get out of it. I have to put in a tremendous amount of effort. So how can this l'chara doesn't fit the most basic definition of what chok means? It doesn't fit. Okay. Kasha 1. Kasha 2 is, what is the license to be describing this Amma B'Torah as a halicha? The pasuk is saying, if you walk in my chukim. So we find in the Torah, let's say Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, Lech lecha me'artzach. Different lashonos of halicha in the Torah that refers to, development, change, or going physical, walking, or somehow one of some of these things. But simply being owned by Torah, how does that translate? How does that end up being a yesod of halicha per se. And then we also want to know that, simply speaking, we're referring to, according to Rashi, this pasuk is producing for us a singular din, a singular halacha. And that is that a person has to be on Torah. So, according to Rashi, then, what is the justification of the plurality of bechukosai? In other words, according to Rashi, it should be in bechuki telechu. In other words, it's a singular thing. It's telling you that you should be amel in the Torah, and the chayk of Hakadosh Baruch Hu is that you need to be amel. Right? That's the simplest way of understanding Rashi. What is the chayk here? The chayk is that you need to be amel b'Torah. That's what it's saying. That is what it means to be holich in the chayk. The chayk means amel b'Torah. So it's just saying bechuki seichu. What is the plurality of the lashon in Rashi? Okay, so that's where we'll start. And we're going to start the idea, and we're gonna go to a Gemara in Baba Basra. The Gemara says something very interesting. It says, "I'm going to believe you. Boy, come and see. Shalakim midas hakadosh baruch hu midas basar b'dam. The midah of hakadosh baruch hu is not like that of the flesh. Hakadosh baruch hu berach Yisrael b'esrim u'shtayim. Hashem blessed the Jewish people with 22 blessings. V'kidulam b'shmayim, and He cursed them with 8. Bechem b'esrim mi'im bechukosai, which is our parsha, our second parsha, ad komemios, until komemios, and then v'kidulam b'shmayim, and He cursed them with 8, which is v'im bechukosai timasu, and that is until v'es chukosai tigal nafsham. So v'im Moshe Rabbeinu berchan b'shmayim v'kidulam b'esrim u'shtayim. So essentially, the Gemara seems to be saying that Hashem blessed more than He cursed, and Moshe cursed more than he blessed. And l'chara, first of all, the basic kasha of the Gemara is, well, what are you talking about a midah? In other words, what are we saying that Moshe Rabbeinu did that? We're saying that what? Moshe Rabbeinu just felt like cursing more? Well, he didn't like Klal Yisrael? Well, we know. It says, Moshe Rabbeinu says throughout the entire Torah, Yosef Hashem, Moshe was most probably the biggest Ohev Yisrael, the biggest lover of the Jewish people in all of Jewish history. So you're going to tell me now that Moshe Rabbeinu, because of his midah, he decided to curse the Jewish people more than bless them? I mean, it's a pliya to say that. That's what the Gemara is indicating. You see, it's not the way of mankind, it's not the way of Hashem. Hashem blesses and people curse. And Moshe obviously cursed them in 22 curses because he felt that it was necessary for them to hear in order for to have the effective result that he wanted. It wasn't out of malice for the Jewish people. That is the opposite of everything we know about Moshe Rabbeinu. If so, what's the Gemara trying to say here? That midas basar v'dam is the curse? Also, what's the svara? What's the logic? What is the geder what the Gemara is saying? Human beings are by definition negative. They by definition want to remove rather than add. That's l'chara not lav dafka true in general. There are many people who would like to give and have blessings and not curse at all. So what is really the Gemara saying about that? And then we have the Rishonim on here that they say that it's mimilchos derecha kormius, that is me'aynu mi'alef ve'ad tav. That's from Aleph to Tav. It's from the letter Aleph to the letter Tav, meaning the entire Hebrew alphabet is what Hashem used to bless the Jewish people. So we need a hesber in that Gemara as well about what's going on over here. Then we have this Gemara in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, Tana Rabbanan, im bechukosai telechu, ein im elo lashon tachanunim. Cheni omer lu ami sheme'ali kimat avei machnia. So the lashon of im refers to tachanunim, which means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kaviyachol begging. He's mischanim lifneim sheyishmu es haTorah. Right? Hashem is begging, please keep the Torah. So we have to understand, what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is begging? HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't beg anything. Why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu beg? Second of all, how do you see that from the word im? Im just means that it's a condition. If you do this, this. If you do this, that. If you go mechugim, bracha. If you don't. Where did Chazal see in the word im that it's a lashon of tachanunim, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu begging the Jewish people to keep the Torah? Also, I mean, what does it mean that he begs them? We need to make our choice. Do we keep it or not keep it? What does it mean that God begs us to do something? And it's a very hard thing to understand. That God is begging me to do something. What does that mean? Hashem is begging you to keep the Torah? He wants you to use your bechira, make a choice. It's what's best for you. What does it mean God is begging me? Okay. So, we're going to start off with the answer with a tremendously fascinating Gemara in Sanhedrin. And the Gemara says the following thing. Amar Rebbe Elazar. It's a famous Gemara, but people don't, obviously, as always, don't really fully understand what it's saying. So Amar Rebbe Elazar, Kol Adam L'Amol Nivra. Okay, so every person was created to toil. And obviously I'm focusing on this because of the Lashon of Amelis B'Torah. Shneimar, Ki Adam L'Amol Yulad. So it's a pasuk in Eov that says that mankind was born to toil. So Eini Yodeya, I don't know, says the Gemara, Im Amal Pen Nivra, Im Amal Malacha Nivra. So is man meant to toil with his mouth, or is he meant to toil with his hands, with malacha, to do work? Kishehu Omer, when it says in the pasuk, Ki Achaf Alav Pihu, the Havi Omer La'amal Pen Nivra. So declares the Gemara, person is born for Amal Peh, for the work that he's going to do with his mouth. I still don't know if it's an Amal Taira, Imla Amal Sich, if it's Amal talking, chattering. Because Omer Le'omer Sefer Torah Zemi Picha, Havi Omer La'amal Taira Nivra. V'hain Damarava Kulu Gufi Durfaktarninu, Tubi Lezachid Durfakati De'araisa. Okay. So Rashi says two pshatim in this statement of Rava. Everyone is a Durfakatai. So the first one he says is, it's referring to Amal. And the second one, which I want to focus on, which I think is the biggest yesod of what's going on here, he says, Lashon Acher, Darfikati is Kis Aruch. Shemshamshin by Ma'is. So Rashi says that a darf tiki is a long wallet which is used to put coins into them. And he explains, Kol HaGufin, all the bodies in the world, meaning all people, nertikenheim, they are nartiken, they are receptacles, lekabel ulehachnis devarim, to accept and to bring in things. Ashri misha zeich v'nasa nartek latera. Blessed, praiseworthy is the one whose merits and becomes an accepting vessel for Torah. Okay. So we wouldn't need to know what that means. And the last makar that we're going to look at today, and then we'll begin to explain the concept of Hashem Yisbarach, is the famous pasuk in Tehillim. Pasuk in Tehillim says, "Vaya ke'etz shasul al palgei mayim." This is a